In the heart of the Catskill Mountains, 3 hours north of Manhattan, an iconic structure has been rebuilt, the Bramley Mountain Fire Tower. The cab is open to the public Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays from Memorial Day weekend through Indigenous Peoples Day, offering sublime views of the magnificent Catskill Mountains. This is the story of this unique tower. Back in the early 1900s, the Catskills landscape consisted of farm buildings, homes, and businesses heated by wood fireplaces. And as trains snaked through the woodlands, bringing goods to cities in the western part of the state, locomotives spewed coal embers from their stacks, and steel wheels grinding on rails sometimes sent sparks flying into the dry tinder on the forest floor. Fires were common and spread quickly. In 1908, the Adirondack village of Long Lake West was destroyed by fire. In response, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation began erecting fire towers on mountaintops throughout the state.
The fire towers were what I call the smoke detectors of the woods. The system of those was placed geographical locations where there was a tendency for fires, such as along railroads or areas that were being extensively logged, or where there were a lot of towns and villages. And the system of fire towers grew from a few to well over 100 across the state of New York.
The Bramley Mountain Fire Tower was built in 1950 to monitor the Delaware River Valley. A decade or so later, fire tower surveillance began to be replaced by airplanes. In the 1970s, the DEC closed most towers in New York State. The Bramley Mountain Fire Tower was decommissioned in 1970 and sold 5 years later with the stipulation that the buyer be responsible for removing it.
Well, my father purchased the Bramley Mountain Fire Tower. I'm not 100% sure why, other than my family, my uncle in particular, probably spent a lot of time there. I guess when the state decommissioned him, he got it for $50, so I guess it was a bargain.
Pete Clark and a small crew took the fire tower apart in a driving rainstorm and transferred the parts to his farm. They color-coded all the pieces so they could reassemble it, but they never did. The idea of reconstructing the tower took root back in 2016.
So the Catskill Mountain Club and the Department of Environmental Protection worked together and placed trails back on the Bramley Mountain parcel. And the Catskill Mountain Club was then approached by the owner of the fire tower, Tom Clark, who said, is there any possibility of returning the fire tower back there now that we have a set of trails that would go to the fire tower? Friends of Bramley Mountain was formed from that initial group of the Catskill Mountain Club and others to actually work toward getting that fire tower returned to the summit.
One of the first acts of the Friends of Bramley Mountain Fire Tower was to bring a contractor and a group of volunteers out to the Clark farm to inventory the fire tower pieces. The contractor told the group to sort and stack similar-looking pieces, which was easy because most still had paint on them and could be sorted by color. After a morning of work, the contractors determined that all the pieces were accounted for and more than 95% were usable. The Friends of Bramley Mountain Fire Tower spent 2020 to 2024 raising funds and obtaining the many necessary permits to rebuild the tower. The group received significant support from the Delaware County government, many local businesses, and individuals across New York State and the country. The Downsville Operations Unit of the Department of Environmental Protection improved the rugged old logging road to the summit so that construction equipment could get up the mountain and have enough room to operate. Excelsior Fire Towers, a Blackbrook, New York-based company, was hired to put the Bramley Mountain Fire Tower back together.
This is the second tower we've done in the Catskills. We did one 17 years ago over in Rhinebeck, and that has an equally incredible sunset view as this one. I've never heard of a tower that has been put back where it originally stood 48 years after it was decommissioned and taken down. Here it is again, not necessarily providing fire protection, but providing a destination and an incredible view to anyone that climbs up the tower.
Construction of the Bramley Mountain Fire Tower was completed in November 2024, and the tower was officially reopened on May 2nd, 2025.
Our local fire tower community here understands the significant role historically that fire towers played in our community. They looked over them and protected them from fires, but they also played other roles. There was a very large educational and public relations role that fire tower observers played. They invited the local school children to come and do field trips and understand the work that they did. And those same school children would often return during the weekend and have a picnic with their family. Those types of things happen within the fire tower community still when there is a fire tower there. So we expect those to happen at Bramley Mountain now in the future. There are also visitors from out of town who hear about fire towers and actually travel many, many miles to come visit fire towers. So we expect that tourism draw will really help the local economy.
The restoration of the Bramley Mountain Fire Tower is a success story and an example of government agencies, small nonprofits, and local volunteers all working together with the support of donors for the good of the community.